Rushing a 10-day-old baby by helicopter to hospital for emergency care is just an everyday occurrence for Flight Lieutenant Roger Mulcahy and his team. Roger is just one of 17 personnel from Williamtown's RAF base, still serving in East Timor.
Now, most of our work includes the locals, and anything that happens where a person needs transporting to the hospital, because this is quite a rugged, mountainous country, we get called out on the helicopter to go and pick them up.
The medical evacuation team is called out at least once a day on emergencies all over the rugged country.
Because there's a lot of the infrastructure, the health infrastructure is not there for them, a helicopter coming in and picking someone up from an isolated area is very often life-saving for them.
Also lending a hand is Newcastle paramedic Alan Playford. Nurse Belinda Amos, who hails from Cessnock, works in the UN military hospital in Dili in often trying circumstances.
You have to work with the stores that you're given, so often you run out of stock. Medications, for instance, and fluids.
But it's not all hard work. Many have had the opportunity to mix with the locals and pass on some of our unique Aussie culture. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It's been well over 6 months since the Eastern Basin Distribution Centre opened its gates, but only today was it officially opened by the Premier. The $10 million centre, a joint venture between Toll Logistics and R&H Transport, will be a base for general cargo in and out of Newcastle Harbour. It'll further add to Newcastle's status as Australia's biggest tonnage port.
It means a diversification and strengthening of the port capacity. It means more goods being able to be exported from Newcastle and more opportunities for imports being received here.
It's hoped the Eastern Basin, with its solid road, rail and sea links, will take a firm hold in Australia's general cargo market, so long dominated by port botany. Plans are now on the drawing board for Stage 2 of the Eastern Basin development, a multi-purpose container terminal. The future of that project hinges on BHP's terminal on the former steelworks site.
BHP have indicated that they will be making a decision or putting out expressions of interest shortly for their facility to a terminal operator.
The Premier came to Newcastle nearly 2 years ago, keen to offer support for the BHP container terminal.
But we would move heaven and earth to see a major port facility of this kind established here in Newcastle.
The Premier now less than briefed on that particular development.
Well, it's just this multi-purpose terminal has been seen as a major
I'm just
plank.
not briefed on that, I'm sorry. I mean, Richard might talk about it, but I'm just not in a position to talk about it.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
At the announcement that the new hotel will go under the brand name of Crown Plaza, catering students showed the Hunter's growing hospitality promise, with Bass Hotels and Resorts likely to develop 120 new jobs for them.
They certainly know their business, because around the world they operate no less than 2,900 hotels.
The state government is the consent authority for the development, but it is yet to give environmental approval.
That means the council will see plans, will have a chance to comment on them, will have a chance to seek modification of them. We're not issuing a development approval today, we're announcing the preferred operator.
While the Premier says the date of the hotel's final approval depends on the developers, the railway line's future in Newcastle is still to be decided, although the NBN phone poll showing 70% support for its removal provided Mr Carr with food for thought. You've seen those results. What did you think of those?
Well, they're very interesting. They indicate support for removing it. The City Council ought to weigh that, ought to consider that. When the locals have made a decision, we'll respond as the state government.
The Lord Mayor didn't miss the chance to give his alternative transport option a plug. He used the occasion to raise the issue of trams for Newcastle. Tony Butterfield left the sweat and toil of the midweek training paddock for the clean-cut corporate image of the Knights captain. Over 500 sponsors in attendance to provide a special farewell for the man who served just one club for 13 years. Plenty of players and well-wishers appreciated the thanks, but the chief was just getting itchy feet.
Six months ago, parts of the West Side Christian Centre in Rutherford were extremely run down and degraded. But now, thanks to the workers from the Work for the Dole scheme, it's looking its best once again.
Yeah, just a lot of hard work went into it, and a lot of frustration and pain. And
It's taken two groups working 2 days a week, sanding, tiling, building and painting, to restore the skating ring and community hall, learning valuable skills along the way. And all the work was done on a budget of less than $12,000. But the jobs were more than just learning trade skills.
The focus of Work for the Dole is to give people back their self-esteem.
And today, members of the group were recognised for their efforts. They received awards and references to encourage them to use their newfound skills in the workforce.
Having worked closely with all of them for 6 months, I've just seen the improvement in their self-esteem, their communication skills. They are much happier in themselves.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
The 21st of March was the big day. Australia's second stock exchange opened with the blessing of the Federal Financial Services Minister Joe Hockey. Then listings were scheduled for only 5 weeks away, but would-be investors are still waiting. Newcastle's business chamber expected better.
I've got to say it's totally disappointing from the business community's perspective, and we've got to say to them, well, why hasn't it happened and what are you going to do about it? And I think they're the questions that need to be answered sooner rather than later.
The Newcastle Stock Exchange says Kip McGrath's education centres will list by the end of August and claims the lack of other companies willing to raise funds on the NSX has been outside its control. The man at the helm, Stephen Pritchard, says companies expected to join the NSX misjudged their timing and are now waiting to complete their reports from the last financial year before issuing prospectuses. While the NSX admits the delay is disappointing, it says there's nothing to worry about. New listings take time, and it still has more than half its initial $600,000 seed funding left in the kitty. David McElwain, NBN News.
After 6 months of being concealed in Mum Holly's pouch, the newest addition to Blackbutt Reserve's koala family today had a taste of the outside world. But the excitement was barely worth raising an eyebrow over when you've had as many kids as Holly.
Holly's the oldest koala we've got here at Blackbutt Reserve, and she's actually carrying her ninth baby in the pouch at the moment. So we originally thought it was a 10th, but records shown to me show it's a 9th, so it is very special to us.
Almost 100,000 people visit Blackbutt Reserve in Newcastle each year, the koalas delighting onlookers and staff, especially when there's a new arrival.
It is exciting. We can't wait for them to come out. And they're going to be a really big crowd attraction as well.
The yet-to-be-named youngster won't be on show to the public for a few weeks yet, but in the meantime, there are still plenty of stars willing to steal the limelight. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The region's business leaders in drag and boxer shorts? Surely not. But a close look shows the camera never lies. Newcastle and Hunter Regional Chamber President put his life and reputation at risk for Dress Down for Drug-Free Day. Despite his own doubts, the growing crowd was behind him 100%. Over the edge, the anxiety on Murphy's face faded, but it was other signs of fear the big man was worried about. With his feet firmly on the ground, Paul Murphy was proud to have raised $7,000. Is there anything you won't do to get on TV?
Well, this is for a great cause, and I think, if we're prepared to do things like this, I'm happy to be involved.
Newcastle has its injury concerns heading into Sunday's clash with the Bulldogs. Top of the list is Ben Kennedy, who's still troubled by an ankle injury.
Oh yeah, I'm going to play. I'm obviously pretty confident getting through the game, otherwise I wouldn't risk it with the semis coming up. I just feel like I need a first grade game under my belt.
Neither Lenny Beckett nor Glenn Grief took much part in today's session with niggling leg injuries, but both will play on Sunday. Tamana Tah, however, is definitely out. He failed a fitness test on a hamstring strain, and that means Darren Albert has grabbed another chance at the top grade.
It's a fair replacement, actually.
Another who'll be with the team on Sunday is 7-year-old Dylan Gollidge. He beat several thousand other entries to win the Night for the Day prize. It's destined to be an emotional day with farewells for Peter Shields, Dave Fairley, Matthew Johns and Tony Butterfield. And everyone knows the best present would be a win.
There'll be time and place for that, and it's welcomed, and the players will respond to the appreciation and the support that the crowd gives the guys. But that can be after the match, and hopefully after we win.
And the match will also be a return of sorts for Jamie Feeney. A Musselbrook junior, Feeney has made a home for himself with the Bulldogs and will start against Newcastle on Sunday. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
At around 9:45 last night, the 8-metre pilot escort vessel, known as the Robert Whitmore, was heading towards Kooragang No. 4 wharf. As it passed the No. 7 marker buoy, it smashed into an aluminium dinghy's port side. 3 fishermen were thrown into the harbour. Part of their boat was crushed and it capsized. 2 men clung to its upturned underside, with one becoming unconscious before both were lifted on board the Robert Whitmore. With a 3rd man still missing, another pilot's vessel was called. When it arrived, the crew overturned the dinghy and found a 30-year-old underneath. He was taken to John Hunter Hospital and placed on life support, but died this afternoon. He left behind a 1-month-old baby and a wife. His 39-year-old neighbour from Thornton was taken to St George Hospital, where he was placed in intensive care. The 34-year-old skipper of the dinghy is in a stable condition in John Hunter Hospital. Police say tests so far have not pointed to alcohol as a factor in the accident, but could not comment on whether the dinghy was fitted with navigation lights.
At this stage, that issue is being investigated by Newcastle detectives.
The skipper of the Robert Whitmore involved in the accident is described by the Port Authority as experienced. The Joint Government First Homeowners Grant Scheme offers $7,000 for first home buyers, and since the 1st of July, the state government has provided 242 Hunter first home buyers with an average saving of $2,955 in stamp duty costs. But many who suffer delays in building their homes are missing out and still having to pay the GST, just what the grants are supposed to offset.
From when we first signed the contract, the house could have been finished before the 1st of July, which all would have gone nice and smooth. But with the delays, as I said, it's gone over that period and affected us pretty bad there.
The problem is one of timing. Building contracts signed before the 1st of July don't qualify for the stamp duty concessions or government grants. But if work is still going on after July 1, many companies are charging GST. Federal member Bob Horn says the government must act.
There's about 50,000 people Australia-wide that are affected. I'm just saying to the government, extend the first homeowners grant to make these people eligible.
It was Cessnock's first semi-final since the 60s, but striker Tony Bauer saw less than 2 minutes of it, injuring his leg in this challenge with keeper Liam Baker. The Hornets showed some sting in attack, but most of the first half was spent defending, with some great work at the back to keep the home side out. And with Peter Oberhauer on song with the gloves, life was tough for Olympic strikers. His opposite, however, opened the door for the visitors when a clearance went horribly wrong in front of goal just before half-time. Sean Anderson went for the quick free kick, but when the dust settled, the Hornets were given another shot from in front. Darren Allen stepped up, his drilling strike pierced through, and it was 1-0 at the break. It stayed much that way for the second half until Trent Austin had a shot from outside parried away, but Hamilton did get their goal. 1-1 is how it stayed, and when extra time still couldn't find a winner, it was a penalty shootout. Cessnock snuck home 3-2 and will now play Edgeworth in the major semi-final next weekend.
And it's Matthew Johns, and this time another grubber kick, and the captain! Did he get it down? Oh, this will be a...
Patrick "Paddy" Wallace was a young man in the prime of his life. But when he left his wife Nikki and 3 children to go fishing on Newcastle Harbour on Friday night, it would be the last time they'd speak.
I guess just go down the harbour was a fairly innocuous little trip. You go for a few hours and see what you can find, then come home. And when we got the call Friday night, it's just one of those things. Terrible accident.
Paddy and 2 of his mates, Darren Schlennert and Gary Pevitt, had been crossing the channel between Carrington and Stockton about 10 o'clock on Friday night when the pilot cutter Robert Whitmore slammed into their craft, throwing all 3 into the water. Gary and Darren were rescued. Help came too late for Paddy, who was trapped beneath the hull.
They did everything that they responsibly needed to do, didn't they?
Yep.
They had all the gear, they had all the lights.
He was a great brother, Paddy, he's the happiest bloke you could ever meet, always stirring you up.
Police, the Port Corporation and the coroner are all investigating the accident. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was smiles all around for an extended Knights first grade squad that went through its recovery session today. Some needed it more than most, with Matthew Johns nursing a badly corked thigh.
A situation with discomfort, and I think over a short period of time it'll loosen up quite well.
Injury aside, the 5/8 believes mental toughness is the real key in semi-final football.
Unless you're right up for it mentally, and you can handle the pressure, then sometimes you can be left short.
That's also the side's frank assessment of their performance yesterday. The opening 20 minutes highlighted Newcastle's form of late, a mixture of everything.
Players all know that we didn't play a real good finals knock yesterday, and we've got to improve on that against Melbourne.
And just who'll play against Melbourne is another question. Danny Medeiros will return to the pack this weekend, forcing a reshuffle, while the 3-man battle for 2 wing spots between Darren Albert, Lenny Beckett and Tamana Tahu continues.
I think I might try and even drag a few people into the selection process for this one, because it's important that we get a few heads on it.
And the rush for tickets to Saturday's semi-final at Marathon started early today, with many braving the morning cold to make sure they have their ticket.
Most real estate agents will tell you it's hard to buy a waterfront home in Newcastle for under $400,000. So there were plenty of takers when 250 two-storey townhouses went up for sale in Linwood Village on Throsby Creek. About 85% have been sold, ranging from $220,000 to $295,000.
It's gone better than we expected. Sales have exceeded what we would have thought in terms of rate of sale and in terms of the prices that are being achieved.
But as they say in the business, location, location, location.
Short walk to the city or a cycle or drive, so it's not very far from the city at all. Waterfront location, so I guess it's got a lot going for it.
It's been 10 months since construction began on stage 1, and it'll be another 3 to 4 weeks before the new homeowners can move in. Many buyers are professionals aged around 40 years old, couples whose children have left home, and investors. It's claimed the development's popularity shows a trend to come back to the city.
They've come from Lake Macquarie, they've come from up the Hunter Valley, Singleton, they've come from in town, they've come from the suburbs where there's no water view, for example. They've come, quite a few have come from Lake Macquarie, so it is pretty widespread.
Catherine Turner, NBN News.
help these kids out and to put a smile on their face. That's what it's all about.
Failing health means John Hales uses a motorised scooter, and while he can travel virtually anywhere in his home suburb of Stockton, he can't board the ferry to cross Newcastle Harbour to the city. Able-bodied travellers simply pass him by.
No way I can get down those stairs, or anybody that's in a chair could get down those stairs.
Barry Purtell is in the same boat, unable to board the ferry since suffering a stroke 5 years ago.
I used to love going over to town when I was mobile, but not now.
After years of lobbying without success, Legal Aid has now stepped in, threatening to take Waterways and Newcastle Council to court in a bid to have wheelchair ramps installed on both sides of the harbour.
In the federal court there's provision for class action of at least 7 people make it a class, but we understand that there are a fair few people, and possibly in the hundreds, who would be affected by this.
Stockton people shop in Newcastle. We don't have local shops anymore, such as clothing shops, dentists, an optician. So we rely on Newcastle, and all the people in Stockton who have disabilities are no longer accessible to the ferry.
The case could take 2 years to reach the courts. Newcastle Council, who's responsible for the City Wharf, says it's likely to have upgraded it by then. Waterways too says work is planned. But in the meantime, the locals must wait.
And if you can't use the ferry, well, you're stuck in Stockton. Not that it's a bad place to be.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
If there has been a one-on-one battle Andrew Johns has been waiting for all season, it's Saturday's matchup with Brett Comorley.
Bloody as it is. I've been looking forward to this one for a while, and I'm sure Brett has. There's that rivalry there. There's a lot of respect for each other, and I think everyone turns up Saturday night, they'll see a good clash.
What they won't see is prop Glenn Grief or winger Lenny Beckett, the 2 unlucky Knights missing selection.
I think everybody just felt for the 2 guys that missed out. It was just a real, you just can't fit 19 into 17 jumpers.
A 4-man selection panel is being used, and it's decided on Darren Albert and Tamana Tahu as the wingers. The pack is full of experience too, with Sean Rudder back to the bench as hooker Danny Badiris makes a timely return, according to the coach.
I just said, you don't realise how much you miss someone until they're not there.
As for injuries, Matthew Johns is thought to be the only real concern ahead of Saturday.
Matt's the only one at the moment. He's confident, so that helps me a lot. He said that I'm a lot better today than I was yesterday. BK's getting better by the minute.
And the team feel they're better for the run on a packed marathon stadium as well.
The atmosphere last week was like it was semi-final, and I think we didn't probably handle the occasion as well as we could have, so we've sort of learnt from that a little bit.
And around 18,000 general admission tickets go on sale tomorrow, but they're not expected to last long.
Dr. Ken Moroney is lucky to be alive. Around 4 weeks ago, he started having headaches and blurred vision, the early symptoms of a brain aneurysm.
In fact, one of my little patients picked it up and she sort of said, she said, there's something going on inside your head, isn't there? And I said, no, of course not, you know. But I knew there was.
He then rang a neurosurgeon at Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital, and within a day he was undergoing surgery to have the ballooning artery in his brain repaired. Now 3 weeks later, he's on the road to recovery. He says he couldn't have done it without the support of the Singleton community.
They've been tremendous in their support. You know, I've had multiple expressions and a lot of visitors and people who just care, basically. They're really wonderful people.
Dr. Moroney is even contemplating returning to his practice and patients.
I'm doing great. I am. I'm very, very happy and I'm very pleased with the neurosurgical team at John Hunter Hospital. I thought they were awesomely good.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
When it comes to the legal system, Australia boasts one of the highest litigation rates in the world, but it seems not everyone can afford to take advantage of the justice system.
We're supposed to have a legal system whereby everyone can access justice, everyone can achieve a just result via litigation. In fact, we have a legal system which really only applies to the wealthy and to large corporations because they're the only people who can afford the fees.
And according to Newcastle University professor David Lemmings, the problem doesn't stop there. He says while it may take years to train as a barrister, the profession is defined by its exclusive culture. His new book claims that culture thrived only because the bar prospered as the main form of law in Britain during the 18th century.
Clearly, they were looking to their incomes ultimately and the survival of their profession rather than getting an expeditious and just result.
He says the end result means common disputes can no longer be dealt with because of the high cost of taking them to court. Professor Lemmings also says more pressure needs to be applied to the federal government to make sure the legal system is an equitable one. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Mayfield Chamber of Commerce President Peter Cowling is angry, and it's the impending closure of the local National Australia Bank that has raised his ire. He's concerned the local business community will be disadvantaged once the bank goes.
Sure, the banks are accountable to their shareholders, without a doubt, but surely you've got to draw a line in the sand somewhere where you say enough is enough. And I believe that the banks are just ignoring that.
NAB management says the branch will close on the 15th of next month due to a dropping off of transactions, but Peter Cowling believes this is short-sighted.
Mayfield's got great potential and there are people with vision seeing that and coming in, and we will overcome it. But things such as this are so sad and I think so unnecessary.
No job losses are expected. Meanwhile, Mission Australia has appointed a community development officer specifically focusing on the Mayfield community. The charity organisation decided to create the new role after a University of New South Wales report found the suburb of Mayfield was one of the most disadvantaged in the state.
So it's important that there is some means, I guess, of facilitating change. And I guess that's what I'm also about, is facilitating some change in this local area to help empower and strengthen the community.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.